Well, you might think you're seeing double, but you're not. Kingsley North recently came out with a new version of their already great cabbing machine. They were nice enough to send me one to review. Not only that, but they sent me an upgrade kit so I can make almost all the same changes to this machine. So let's take a look at it and I'll show you what's new. But before I do that, I have to get this set up. So far all I've done is take it out of the box, and you can see there's a little bit of assembly that needs to be done. The first thing I'm going to do is install the drain hoses. And if you unroll these, you'll notice that one's longer than the other. That's for a situation like I'm going to have here, where I'm going to drain it off the side of the bench. So I need a long hose to go from the far side around and a shorter hose to go from the short side. If you're draining off the back of your bench, you can cut them to whatever length works. Next I'll put on the belt guard. This little part just has to slip down over the frame here, like that. And then there's just a little bolt that goes in up here, like this. And we've got a belt guard. While we're back here, let's talk about the motor. This is a 1/3 horsepower Dayton motor, and I like that it's just an off-the-shelf motor, so if anything ever goes wrong with it, I can get a motor anywhere I want and replace it really easily. Comes with 2 brackets that you just put over the edge here, and you can screw this right down to your bench top. Except that I have a Formica countertop and I didn't want to screw into it. So what I did on my other machine is I just made a piece of plywood to fit underneath here and attach it to that, and that worked really well. Before I put that on, let me just show you one other thing. There's little feet underneath here, and these feet are a little bit taller, so this is angled down toward the drain hoses. I went to put this on and realized that the screws that came with it were going to be way too long. It's going to screw the whole thing down to my countertop, so I just went and got some other screws, and I've already drilled some holes, so those are just going to go on there like that. I just need to hook up the pump. It comes with a roll of tubing, and you just push this onto there. And then the other end goes into the pump here. And just push it down like that, and that holds it really well. This is a submersible pump. This goes right down in a bucket of water. And if you want to get this off, you just push this little ring down, and that'll pull out. Last thing to install is a light, and that's really easy to install. It has one of these quick connects like you'd see in an air compressor hose. You just pull this back, you push it on, you let go, and it's on. The stud on the back here has been improved over the previous version of the machine. The other one had a single bolt through the middle of this, and when you move the lamp around enough, it'd loosen up the bolt, and then to tighten the bolt, you had to take the whole top off and tighten it up. Now they got 3 screws around the outside, and this is not coming off. Now that it's all set up, let's take a little closer look at it. The main body of the machine is all stainless steel, which is really nice since you use this with water, and if it wasn't stainless steel, you'd be dealing with rust. One of the changes they made here is they lowered the sides of this bottom pan used to be about this tall. And they've lowered it down a little bit. I didn't notice a problem with the other one, but I think this just gives you more room to get your hand on the nice hand rest here and work on the wheels a little better instead of having up here. If you want to work a little bit lower on the wheels, now you can. The whole end panel here has been redesigned. On the old one, there were 2 bolts that you had to take out, and then the whole panel lifted off. And you had to take it off to use this end disc, because the valve for the water supply was right on that little hose there. So on this new one, you're probably going to rarely take this off or open it up, because now it's a door. You don't need to, because the valve is now up here. This hole is bigger, so you can reach in there and work with it. And on the other one, I used to just leave the panel off, and it'd spray water all over this area. Sometimes they'd put a towel down just to catch the water. With this new one being closed, I think it's going to contain a lot of that water. So if you did want to open it up, you just take this off. And you can see there's a little rubber flap down here to keep the water in. There's also a rubber seal around there to keep water in. Probably the only reason you'd open this is to change the wheels. And with this being lower, it's a little bit easier to get the wheels in. It was a little bit difficult before. This end one comes off here. This is a cerium oxide wheel or disc, and it's already in there, so all you have to do is just add water. You don't have to add your own cerium oxide. Comes with this big wrench to take this off. So if you're going to change the wheels, this is how you do it. That's threaded on the inside, so this is really nicely made. And you can see the shaft, it's also stainless steel, and that's a 1-inch shaft. This has the upgraded Diamond Pacific wheels on it. These first two wheels are called Galaxy wheels. This one's 80 grit and this is 220 grit. These are hard wheels. And the next four wheels, they're called Nova wheels. They're soft wheels. So if you put any flat spots on your cab on the first couple of wheels, then you can push it in here and it kind of conforms to the cab and takes out those flat spots a little easier. These are 280 grit, 600 grit, 1200 grit, and 3000 down here. There's a nice amount of space between the wheels. They vary a little bit, but this first one is 1.5 inches. I think that's the biggest one, and the smallest one is down here. It's about 1 1/8 inches. A really common concern I hear from people is that I'm going to slip and cut my finger on these wheels. These are really rough right now, so if I was to run this right now and touch it, I would definitely draw blood. But these require breaking in. The manufacturer of the wheels recommends you use a hard rock like an agate, and you just run the rock for a few minutes. It's like, I don't know, 2 to 5 minutes, something like that on each wheel. And once they're well broken in, you can touch all of these wheels and you're not going to cut yourself. A bigger concern are your lungs. Whenever you're working around power equipment with rocks, you should wear either a dust mask or better yet a respirator. I always wear my respirator. Even though there's not a lot of mist that comes off this machine, any amount of mist in the air that I could be breathing in is dangerous, and so I just protect myself all the time. You should also wear eye protection, and hearing protection isn't a bad idea, although these are not very loud machines. A lot of the changes are on this new hood. I already mentioned that there's a valve here and here that are brand new. They feed those discs on the end. By the way, this one's a 360 grit disc. It's nice for flattening things out, like the back of a cab. If maybe you have some saw marks or something you want to grind out, that works well for that. This felt system is all brand new. You can see there's one continuous piece here where there used to be 3 individual pieces, and these weren't here at all. Apparently what this does is it spreads the water out on the wheels a little better, and it also cuts down on mist. I really didn't see a big problem with either of those before, but apparently it's better now. So these were also a pain to change. They do wear out over time, and you had to take the whole hood off, which is a pain. And now you can just take out these 3 screws and change that all at once. And back here it's 2 screws for each one of these. These are also adjustable. You can loosen that and move this up and down, so as they wear, I guess you can move it down, or if it's getting too much pressure on there or not enough pressure, you can adjust how you want. There's also a little bit of play here. The holes in the felt are elongated, so you can move this up and down a little bit. Then there's these 2 plugs. Down underneath there are the bearings, and they have Zerk fittings, and so instead of taking the top off to grease them, you can just reach right down through there. They even recommend in the manual a specific grease gun attachment that works really well for this. And then the water hoses go in through these 2 holes in the top. They used to go in through the back, so they go in and they were kind of short. When you lift the hood up, it kind of held the hood in place. You'd have to feed it through and work the hood up, and then when you put it back down, they'd get caught in there. You had to pull them out as you're putting it down. Now you can take this whole hood off and just put it wherever you want. It's really easy to move. Besides making the machine more usable, a lot of these changes just make it a lot easier to maintain. Some really, really nice improvements here. The instructions that come with the machine are well written and well illustrated. It tells you how to use the machine and also how to maintain it. And it also comes with this little booklet on how to make a cabochon, so if you're new to this, that might be really handy. This is the original version of the machine that I've really enjoyed using over the past 3 years. But as I said in the beginning of the video, they also sent me an upgrade kit to upgrade this one to be almost the same as the brand new machine. The only thing it doesn't get you is the lowered hand rest, which has never been a problem for me in the first place, and the swinging doors on the side. Other than that, I think everything's included here at a fraction of the cost of upgrading the whole thing. You've got the valves for the discs on the ends. You got the new felt system. There's the holes for greasing the bearings. These two holes are to feed the water line in instead of having it come in through the back. And that's really nice. If you ever do have to take this top off, not having it tied down with those water lines is really handy. I think it's really great that Kingsley North gives you the option of upgrading this to get a lot of the new features without buying a whole new machine. I just got done installing the new hood on this machine. It took me about 45 minutes, went really well. The directions were really good. And now it's time to get this machine dirty. So I'm going to break in the wheels and that'll make a cab. This is my preform. I cut this much on the trim saw. I use the edge of the blade of the saw as a grinder and get close to the line, but not too close because my blade's pretty rough and it can chip up the stone. Now it's just a matter of getting closer on each wheel. I leave a little space outside the line so I have some material to grind away with the next couple of wheels. Each wheel is finer than the last, which not only takes out the scratches left by the previous wheel, but it also grinds slower so you're less likely to take too much off by accident. Notice that I'm using mostly the edges of the wheels for this. Wheels tend to wear out more quickly in the center because that part of the wheel gets used a lot in the later stages. So when I don't have to use the center, I try to avoid it. It's a good idea to rinse the cab off between wheels so you don't accidentally carry a stray diamond from one wheel to the next. I also like the overhead water system for that same reason. You're always using clean water that way. The very first cab machine I had, I got used, and it had a little geyser gizmo that you set underneath the wheels, and it just squirted water from the tray below. So it was recycling dirty water, and it always seemed a little dangerous that you might drop a diamond off one wheel and have it get squirted up onto the neck. I just go to the fourth wheel for this part, and then I go back and I put a dome on the front. You can see now I put a dop stick and a girdle line in my cab. The dop stick's just a dowel that's stuck on with hot wax. When I'm done, I just stick it in the freezer for a few minutes, and it usually comes off that way, but if it doesn't, I just run it under warm water for a minute or two, and it usually pops right off. I start by cutting a 45-degree angle around the edge. Then I keep decreasing that angle a little at a time until I get to the center. After that, I start rocking the cab from the center to the girdle line, trying to stop as close as I can to that line. And then I alternate between these two methods for the rest of the wheels. So sometimes I go around the outside, kind of in circles, and then sometimes I rock it back and forth. Most of the shaping gets done by the third wheel, and after that it's just a matter of removing scratches from the previous wheel. So as I was using this, I was trying to notice differences between it and the original machine. One of the things with the original machine that would happen is it would puddle water behind the machine if you used it for a couple hours or so. And they fixed that to a large degree by sending me some like rubber gaskets that go around the inside underneath the hood. And that helped a lot, but it didn't completely eliminate it. If I used the machine for several hours, there was still a small puddle behind it. But so far with this machine, I've seen no water at all behind it. It's been completely dry back there. The only other problem I had with the original machine is that the felts that came with it wore out really quickly. But then they replaced them with a more dense felt, and those lasted a lot longer. Jury's still out on these since I just started using it, so I don't know how long they'll last, but I do know they're going to be a lot easier to change, so that's really nice. As for the hand rests, I probably should use those more than I do. It'd probably give me a little more control over how I was moving the cab, but I tend not to use them, so I really don't have an opinion on the new position. After I'm done with the dome, I go back and finish polishing the sides. I don't do that earlier because it erases the girdle line. Using this end disc with the door closed has kept it a lot drier. It gets a little mist on the counter, but nothing like before. It's a huge improvement here. This is great. Well, there it is. My first cab done on the Kingsley North Cabber 6 Rev 2. In case you're wondering what the light bulb in the machine looks like, there it is. Isn't that cool? That's an awesome rock. All right, next up, one of my favorite rocks ever, the Petoskey Stone, Michigan State Stone. You never know exactly how these are going to look until they're done, so hopefully this is a good one. When you're polishing a Petoskey stone, or actually any rock or cab for that matter, it's a good idea to dry it off between each wheel. The water has a tendency to cover up scratches really well, but if you dry them off, those scratches stand right out. So you know if you've missed a spot, and that way you can take care of it before you get 3 wheels down the row here and then have to go back and redo it. That's never any fun. I just love watching the transformation from a rough Petoskey stone to a polished Petoskey stone. They just change so much. That just never gets old. Well, you gotta be happy with that Petoskey stone. So that's the Kingsley North Cabber 6 Rev 2, and it also comes in an 8-inch version. A huge thanks to Kingsley North for sponsoring this video, and by the way, they're a Michigan company, and these are made in Michigan and Wisconsin. So click on the link and go check them out.